aboard those balls once again. Once again, Cheryl Strawberry is he having us again. More than perfect way aboard those balls once again. Once again.
I did not then and don't now have much respect for what goes on. It's been on my mind and it's been bugging at me. Yeah, I've done a lot of things wrong. I'm not going to say I've never done nothing wrong. Nobody here can say they've done nothing wrong. Probably y'all can even say you've done nothing wrong.
Every time I roll up, everyone say, look who had to show up.
So I had this idea to make a sort of ARG-esque internet maze video thing where I was going to have this intro video that would be this trippy, strange thing that would be posted to one of my main channels. It would be a kind of like weird esoteric analysis that might be kind of goofy. And the idea I got one night, I was on 4chan on the A board, and someone was posting these pictures from Non Non Biyori, the anime series, and they were comparing it to the real-life locations that the show is based off of. And it was really funny because the show presented it as like this bright, vibrant, amazing-looking place, and the actual places are, you know, just kind of drab and dreary-looking because they don't have nearly that level of saturation in their colors that the show does. So I was thinking about making this like kind of jokey video about me being like really depressed and drinking myself into oblivion because the real world's not as good as the anime world, and like wanting to go to the anime world. And it would have been presented with all these like interspersed images of those shows and then like weird random trippy stuff. Then and it would have been hopefully set to this song, Kendrick Lamar's You. I wasn't entirely sure how I'd incorporate that song into it because I wanted one without vocals, and I couldn't find an instrumental for this half of the song that I wanted. But it would feature like footage of me drinking slowly, and then there'd be sped up parts and stuff like that. And then at the end of the video, it would just dive into this like huge clusterfuck of images, like Evangelion style, where there's just like a bunch of shit happening on the screen all in a row. And it would be clips from some of the other videos that I was working on, like that were going to be a part of this thing, as well as just like random stuff in anime. And then on screen there'd be a sequence of numbers, and each of those numbers would correspond to a letter, and if you solved this code, if you figured out like what all the letters were, then it would link you to a website. And then at the very end of the video it was going to say start digging, and then cut to a picture of it being daylight outside and all of these open Yinglings on my table. And so like I drank like half of these Yinglings over the course of filming these in about a week. And then I hate Yinglings so much, and I discovered through doing this that I can't get drunk off of Yinglings because they're so low in alcohol content and they're so difficult to drink because they're kind of gross that, you know, even though it's like a really cheap beer, I couldn't get drunk off of it because I couldn't drink enough of them to get drunk. So, yeah, I just kind of left all these open bottles of Yingling on my table, just like waiting for the day I continue this series. And part of the incentive to just put all these vlogs out and say I'm done with it is that I want to clean up the Yingling table. Now, if you made it past that last puzzle, you would have gotten linked to a website, and on that website there would have been more codes you had to get through and stuff, but basically it would lead you to this YouTube video called Clicks. From that video there would be a ton of on-screen annotations, because the idea is clicks as in click on the things on screen, which would lead you to other YouTube videos which each had different codes that you had to solve for puzzles on the main website that you were back on at the beginning. I'm just going to put notations on screen for some of the hidden stuff in this Clicks video. You know, I'm a big fan of cliques. I operate largely in cliques, small groups of individuals, like-minded people who work together. I think a lot of people are worried about this danger of the echo chamber, especially now in the days of the internet, where it's so easy to filter things and create a bubble for yourself, a filter bubble, as Maddox called it on The Biggest Problem in the Universe. But you know, I think filter bubbles used to exist just naturally by location, right? Like, you lived in a place, and everyone in that place felt the same way, and it made you ignorant of the fact that there were people in other places who felt different ways. You lived physically in a filter bubble. By being on the internet, the very nature of being able to see an opinion that is opposed to yours and then to block that guy, you still had to see it. You have to be aware. And that fucks with you, in a way. Like, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that it's going to change your mind. You're going to subtly start thinking about the fact that other people feel differently from you. I think that everyone, there's this great video series called Why Are You So Angry by Innuendo Studios. A lot of people got mad at me for liking this video, even though it's fucking phenomenal and you can all go fuck off. Because if you pull aside all the bullshit, Gamergate, feminism, what the fuck ever, who cares, you should all be above this kind of incidental, in-the-moment bullshit anyways. Think about broad concept stuff, which is what this presents some great ideas for. There's a moment where he talks about a bunch of hooligans sitting on a bus, and it's like a story from his life, where these guys were being loud and hollering around and shit and being assholes, and then someone on the bus went, "Hey, be quiet." And they said like, "Hey, fuck you, guy," but then eventually they all got quiet because they had been made informed that other people had different opinions from them and wanted them to stop, that they were doing something that was aggressive towards other people. And I've seen this happen in action. I've seen even with myself, where I've said things that others have found offensive, and I've gone, fuck you, and then later on, I kind of changed the way I talk a little bit, because in my heart of hearts, I don't want to hurt people. Now, there's some stuff I'll stick up for because I strongly believe that I should be able to say the things I say sometimes, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that people do change just by hearing other people, just by being aware that there's a world outside of yourself. It causes a lot of differences. But I still nonetheless like clicks. I think people should migrate towards what works for them, what allows them to sustain themselves, and they should be aware of everyone else. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we all should be grouped into one giant group that all has the same rules, right? Let's say we've got like a village over here where everyone believes one thing, and a village over here that has a contesting belief. If these two villages can get along, if they can just go, well, we believe what we believe and you believe what you believe, and let's live and let live, then the world can operate just fine. Because for some people, that's how they're going to identify. That's how they've grown up. That's how they want to live. I think there's a certain danger in us assuming that, I think everyone assumes that their culture is correct and everyone else needs to join their culture. And, sometimes we find out that a culture was correct because eventually everyone does agree with it. Those thought germs get into your head. People hear that thing that they say fuck off to, but then they later realize is a good idea, and then it changes them, and then their culture changes as well. And that's how the best ideas get out there. But we can't predict that. We don't know what the best ideas are. We've only got our own ideas that we think are great, and eventually over time, evolution will sort out what's actually right and what's actually wrong. But for the moment, as long as we can believe in things that don't involve killing everyone who doesn't believe in the same thing, which unfortunately is some people's belief, and that's where we get to the point where some people have to die. It's a sad fact of reality, but we cannot have the world continue on with everyone believing that, if some people believe that everyone who doesn't have their belief needs to be killed, and they go around killing people, there's not much we can do but to stop them. It's unfortunate. But if we could have a more sort of tribalist, decentralized approach to human society, where different groups had their own rules and they could coexist with other groups. Maybe if you're born into a group and you grow up to not agree with it, you can go join the one you do agree with. I mean, there's some extent to which that happens already. People who grow up in the South and become liberals, they move to the fucking cities. But I think that's something to be embraced on some level. If only the people in the country would say, oh, you believe that? Well, why don't you move to the city instead of, get out of here before we kill you? Just more understanding of each other. But I think clicks do work. There's a lot of great lyrics I'd like to cite. the Dredge song where they keep singing, "We live like penguins in the desert, why can't we live like tribes?" And it's an interesting thought to think that we've brought ourselves out of place. Like, it's not in human nature necessarily to live in these big cities, these big areas, these big countries where the United States, which is like this weird conglomerate of like all these different crazy ideas that go in all these different directions, and we're trying to put one rule of law over all of it, doesn't completely make sense. I mean, mind you, state laws here have a lot of power on their own, but even in that context, like, I live in Virginia Beach, fairly liberal part of Virginia, and then you go out to the country and it's like a totally different world. It's like the Deep South out on the west end of Virginia, whereas this end is like a weird, like, liberal place. Super weird that we're the same state, right? Because we have different needs and different things that we want out of life, and different approaches to how we want things to be. It's dangerous for one side's ideals to be forced on the other side, in a way. You know, we have this system where we have the big government and then the smaller ones, and then each one that controls a specific area, but like, I think it's weird at all to have big systems. But the problem is that we can't not, because in our society, you know, if we did split up into all those small ones, guess what they're going to do? They're going to start taking each other over. They're going to start invading each other. They're going to start forcing their beliefs on one another. And it's just like, we need that umbrella just to keep everyone fucking working together. But that's unfortunate. And if everyone understood how unfortunate that was, then, you know, the world would be better. But I like cliques. I like that I belong to certain groups, certain people who are my friends, you know, like my offline friends are a very tightly knit group. My online friends are a very tightly knit group. People who, you know, we have our own culture together. We have our own ways of thinking and our own sets of beliefs that coincide with each other, and we can feed off of each other very well and sort of, you know, keep together and bond over certain things. And I think it's a powerful connection that we have, and it helps us to be able to proceed with our lives, you know. I think that most people belong to a sort of tribe that is their parents and their family. And in this world we live in now, where communities at large are not as much of a thing, but families are still a thing, it really is at a point where, like, your tribe is just your family. But for me, I'm lucky enough that I have a tribe that is like, you know, my family is a part of it, and also all of my friends. We all sort of come together. We all, you know, my friends are always at my house. They're friends with my parents. We all spend time together. We all have this similar sort of shared experience of the world, and we help each other through. And I think that there's more power in that than there is in the broader groups that we're a part of, by being in the city, by being in the state, and things like that. I just think there needs to be more power from the bottom, you know, more power bottoms. There needs to be more power bottoms.
So one of the main ideas behind this whole ARG thing was that I was going to film all of these vlogs from very different angles in my room. It was inspired by Devu having told me that when he watches my videos, he sometimes can't get a sense of where everything is in relationship to one another because the room seems so huge, and I film it from so many different angles. And I've always been inspired by the way that when you watch Endless Jess videos, like, I've seen his room from every conceivable place, and yet it's taken me like forever to get a sense of what the actual layout is because there's so many different parts to it. So I got the idea for this after I had just rearranged my room entirely, and I had like really categorized everything in really specific ways, and like made all these different areas which could each be filmed in. And as the series would go on, there'd be like no two spaces or angles used, you know, like no one would be used twice. So that every single time it would be like a totally different location. You'd be like, where the hell am I? And then as this went on, which I didn't end up filming very many, you know, parts to this, which is why I'm releasing it all now, because it's not like I got that far into making it. But eventually the storyline of this was supposed to be that I was gonna like be losing my mind because I can't like escape my room, and there'd come a part where I was trying to escape and I'd be running through all the different backgrounds, but they'd be in different order, or a different order from like what they were supposed to be. Like, you know, maybe I'd run past one shelf and then past the next one, but then it's not actually in the order that they would be if you were actually running through my room. So basically it would be to portray my room as like a labyrinth and make it look inescapable. And I was gonna do this because I put up so many posters in so many different areas that, like, you know, there's like infinite uses for my room. Now, the problem with this was that immediately there was like a time limit on when this would be plausible, because I use my room already for lots of vlogs and stuff, and, you know, and I wanted to have all these segments just for regular vlogging anyways. So, like, the longer that I went with filming more videos in my room, the more of it the audience was going to already be familiar with, and the harder it would be to make it as disorienting as I wanted it to be. So, that was part of the issue. And then the other one was that I wouldn't be able to pull off the storyline as long as Digibros was still going, because, you know, I kept talking about my daily life on that show, and Victor's always there, and it would be impossible to portray this idea that I am, like, you know, losing my mind in my room if there's a whole show where I'm talking about not doing that. So, so yeah, this kind of was like, I thought maybe I'd wrap it up, like, or I'd get back to it after Victor left to go to college, and then, or to go to grad school, rather. But he's not leaving till probably July, so, like, these videos clearly look outdated, because there'd be, like, these first 4 where my beard is one length, and then all the others, like, my bearded hair would be much longer, which could be funny for the idea of me being lost in my room so long that my facial hair grew, but, like, there's not enough of a gradient to it, and, you know, some of these I just wanted these videos to be out there. Some of these topics I ended up talking about again later anyways, so just overall it felt like I held on to these clips for too long, and the idea kind of soured in my mind. I've got other stuff I'm working on now, so I'm not, like, as excited about this, and I also just think the concept wasn't fleshed out enough. Like, I still like the idea of the room being a labyrinth and all that, but, like, the way I would have been able to pull it off wouldn't have been that strong, and the kind of puzzles that I had in mind to, like, navigate this labyrinth for the viewer didn't really have much to do with the actual narrative. Whereas if I was going to do this seriously, I'd rather it be, you know, more of a complete story. This felt like more like it was going to be a test for if I wanted to do this again in the future, because it doesn't feel enough like a complete work of art. And if I try to do something like this again, I want it to feel more complete, which is why I'm just dumping all this shit out now. A couple of weeks ago, I completely rearranged my room. I reorganized everything, put everything in its right place. I put up all the new shit I had, you know. Eventually your shelves get overcrowded, but somehow when you reorganize them, everything seems to fit again. And I put everything up. I put up posters on all of the walls. I covered everything in posters. Created this room, this tunnel of all colors. And I finished it, except for these shelves. Mostly this shelf has been holding me up. It's my My Little Pony stuff. Huge collection of things that I got when I was deep into My Little Pony. A lot of toys, little collectible items, Elements of Harmony book, a bunch of fan-made stuff, a bunch of fan art that people made for me and stuff like that. I haven't brought myself to put that shelf together. And for like 2 years now, I've kind of been like ignoring and avoiding My Little Pony. Almost like I was never into it. It's a weird feeling, because I know that I spent 1.5 years of my life, well, 2 years that I was super into it, 1.5 years that I was blogging about it, and that was my career. I met all of my online friends through it, built my career through it, met countless people, countless artists and people I worked with. I was very open to people at the time. So it's weird that I can't find any enthusiasm for it anymore. You know, something I was into for so long that was like my favorite thing. Like, I was really more into My Little Pony than I'd ever been into anything. What was so exciting about it for me when I first got big into it was that I'd never really had a favorite show before. I'd never had one show that I liked so much that it beat everything else until that one. And it was so exciting for me that I just like went all in on it and decided to dedicate myself to it. But somewhere along the line, it just lost that meaning, and I think it took on a different meaning. And, you know, I didn't like season 5 of the show. I only watched half of it, but I didn't like what I saw. And I kind of lost interest in the show entirely. I even lost interest in the episodes I'd previously loved. You know, like, looking at stuff from the show doesn't excite me anymore. There was a long period of time where just, like, thinking about the show was exciting to me. And that is no longer the case. I can't look at anything from it and, like, remember or call back to that time when I was in love with it. It's just something that's passed. And, like, it's hard for me to reconcile the idea that maybe it was the fandom, the people who were watching my videos, the way that they were received and everything, but, like, I kind of think that's entirely what it was. And I come to this realization sometimes because there were songs that I'd relate to, or feelings I'd relate to back then, that when I think about now and how I haven't related to those in a long time, it's very bizarre. Maybe I was a different person when I was into My Little Pony. Maybe I just was a entirely different being, and maybe that's why when I talked about season 4 my attitude was so different, was that I changed as a person. Maybe that's what people were sensing, because I never felt like I got more negative towards the show. Everyone accused me of that, but like maybe they were just sensing that I wasn't the same guy anymore. There was a period towards the end where people would obsess over the things I said to such an extent. And I was really into the song Way I Am by Eminem, which is a song basically about his fame being so out of control and people constantly being on him for every different reason, that he was just sick of it all. He was sick of having fans, he was sick of being criticized, he was sick of everything everyone was saying about him, and he just said, I am whatever you say I am. It's a very angry song, and at the time, I completely related with it. There were so many lyrics in there that were like exactly how I felt. I'm so sick of tired of being admired that I wish that I would just die or get fired or drop from my label and stop with the fables I'm never gonna be able to top on my name is. Pigeonholed into some poppy sensation that caught me rotations at rock and roll stations, and I just do not got the patience to deal with these cocky Caucasians who think I'm some wigger who just tries to be black because I talk with an accent and grab on my balls so they always keep asking the same fucking questions. Like, all of this. This is what I was feeling at the time. And I listen to that song now and I don't feel any of that. You know, I've been doing anime for over 2 years now. Or close, yeah, around 2 years now. I don't feel that. I haven't had that. Nobody admires me that way anymore. Not to that, like, jarring, overwhelming extent. I don't communicate with people that way anymore, you know? The fandom of Pony was very young. A lot of it was very autistic or very socially awkward, very outcast people who were clinging to anyone who made them feel special or different, and they clung to me in a way that made me insane. You know, and like at the time that was something I could deal with. It was like, whatever, it's not a big deal. But looking back on it from the perspective of someone who doesn't feel that way at all, it's suddenly scary. You know, it's like when I was dealing with it at the time, it felt like something I just had to deal with. But now I would never go back to that. You know, now that I've lived 2 years without that, I would never want to be someone who so extensively relates to those Eminem lyrics. So maybe that's why it's so hard for me to embrace this again. Like, the idea of putting this shelf together is like building a monument to a time that I don't necessarily remember fondly. Even though so many good things came out of it, you know? So many friendships came out of it. My first relationship came out of it. Although that could easily be a big part of why I am distant from it, you know? Because most of those memories are soured now. Like, my memories of my relationship are mostly of the bad parts. Because it was the sort of thing where being in the relationship, I focused only on the good because I wanted to feel good about it. And then once it was over, I focused only on the bad because why would I want to feel good about something that was over, you know, like it just would create heartache. So, in retrospect, I mostly have bad memories of being in a relationship. I mostly have bad memories of bronies. I mostly remember how much they bothered me, how much I didn't like things, and now that things are better, I mostly think about how much better they are now than they were then. How much easier people are to deal with, how much I don't have the same... I mean, a lot of it was not the show's fault or the fans' fault, it was my fault, you know. I connected with way too many people. I just kind of had never experienced having people talk to me all the time, so I responded to everyone and let everyone in, and then realized that you should never let everyone in and pushed everyone back out, you know. Found my clique, hung out with them, and we've been happy since. So it's odd. I don't feel like I can think of My Little Pony the way I can other shows, you know? I can't go back to a time when it was just a TV show that I liked. That's gone for me. I kind of envy Jesse in a way, because Jesse has always said that, you know, the show is just amazing to him, and he'll never, like, nothing will ever ruin that, nothing could take it from him. He's always said that he's waiting for the day that everyone else thinks the show's shit so he can be the only fan again. And I don't think I can get back to that. I always imagined I could. I always imagined that one day I'd just watch the show again and I'd love it again. But, like, I don't think it'll happen, because when I look at it, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything when I look at it anymore. I don't feel excitement. I can remember, like, I can still say to people, like, yeah, it was a good show. Yeah, this character was great for this reason. Like, I remember all the information I had before, but the feelings are gone. I can't get excited for it anymore. It's why I don't bring it, like, you know, I'll bring up anything in a video. I'm never very ashamed of liking the things I like, but the reason I never use My Little Pony as an example anymore is just that I can't get excited for it. I can't, the way that Jessie will throw Fluttershy into a video because she illustrates a point well and he's not ashamed of it. Like, I've thought for a while, like, am I ashamed? Is that why I'm not doing it? Am I afraid of what people will think of me? But it's really more of, I don't want to be associated with it. I don't want to be involved with My Little Pony anymore. I don't like it anymore. Now, the only reason I was putting together this shelf was for the sake of a theme, because I've built this room around themes. But even then, bringing myself to actually do it, it's just been rough.
So this next clip about wraps up the footage I have for this failed ARG thing. And just to make sure that there's no doubts about this video itself is not meant to be the launch of its own ARG thing. I know that could potentially be confusing, but no, this is just all the failed material I had. If I ever do launch one, you will know, because I'll launch it in a spectacular fashion. But yeah, just gonna kind of abandon this concept, and I hope you enjoyed getting to see these clips that I had salvaged. I really wanted to just clear all of the footage and all of the unfinished projects that I have off of my computer so that I can get started on just cranking out, you know, more new content, just sort of out with all this old stuff that I don't want anymore. So thanks for watching.
Barely see my breath surrounded by jealousy and death. I can't be reached, only have a call.
You know, some nights it's fun being alive, and some nights it ain't really.
Separate from you all.
Some nights it's gratifying to do my job. Some nights I don't want to do shit.
Lost my own return in spite
Some nights the only way to stay alive is to go to bed.
of everything I've learned. I hit my tracks, spit out all
Nights I feel like none of it's worth it.
slipped into
Sometimes I feel like I don't want to do anything that I'm doing. Some nights I feel like everything I'm doing is bullshit. Some nights I feel like I don't want to go on this way. And I've learned those nights you just gotta sleep away. You just gotta go to bed. Because if you keep the train of thought going, it only leads to darkness. What's the sense in letting a night go on that you don't enjoy? If the thought ever crosses your mind, I don't want to live this night anymore, you just gotta let the night end.
You can write that down. It's all too crazy. I'm not sticking around.